Welcome everybody. So I'm Chris, I'm from University of Queensland and
Hold on.
So
what's happened there?
sorry, I think May might have a few connection issues.
Can you hear me okay or not?
Yep, I can hear you okay.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I'm from the University of Queensland and happy to be joined by Candice Beckman, business process consultant at the University of Texas, Arlington. So good evening, Candice.
Hello, thank you.
It's lunchtime in Australia and I think you said 9 or 9:30 at night in the US.
Yes.
So I'll just start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I am on. So as you've already heard in this conference, there were up to 500 Indigenous nations around Australia. It's the Turrbal people, were the traditional owners of the land to the north of Brisbane, where I live. I pay my respects to elders past and present who continue spiritual connections to country. It's interesting with a population that's been here for 60,000 years and so little built environment as evidence of that. But as I've come to learn more about First Nations people and the connection to country, it really was about living with the land rather than living on it and not trying to kind of shape it to be something else. So Candice and I met at Lean Higher Ed 2019 in Ann Arbor, and she's part of the business improvement team in the Office of Information Technology at UTA. I was very fortunate to spend a few days with the team after that conference, and that opportunity really came up from a previous Lean Higher Ed conference where I met Karen Kusler. And Karen presented in 2017 and Candice has presented at other ones and so have I. And Karen and Candice are presenting pretty much straight after this one. So Candice will have back to back and then I'm on again Friday morning my time.
Hey Chris, just sorry, there was just a comment that you're not in presentation mode in your sharing screen.
Oh, okay. Is that better?
Yep, all good.
Okay.
If you press on display settings on the top, sorry, and then just switch the screen because it's showing the presenter mode.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Do you see on the top left? Display settings, right above that.
It's come up with a strange, when I changed, it came up with quite a strange view there. Okay, I don't know what. I'll stop sharing. Well, it's at the point where I would stop sharing anyway for the moment, and then I'll try to work that out. So Candice, tell us about the work that you do at the university.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that excellent introduction. I'm excited to be here today and sharing about our collaboration efforts over the past couple of years. My role at UTA is split in half. So half my work is to facilitate lean improvement events with partners across campus, including both the academic and business units. The other half of my work is centralized around growing and developing the process improvement culture within the organization. So we have a training program and we provide coaching to employees at various levels throughout the organization.
Yeah, and I'm keen to talk about the training program today. And something that struck me about the team when I got to visit there is that although you come out of the IT division, you're really all about people rather than technology. It was evident that you know, the team understands you're in the change business and not in the kind of the tech solutions business.
Yeah, indeed. Our team has really evolved over the years to support changes that occur on campus. We have 3 teams in our department. So we have process improvement, we have a training and support group, and then we have a communications team. We've all been trained in change management, and we're currently evolving into a unit that supports continuous improvement within the organization. The fact that we're housed in IT really helps us to be embedded in projects where large changes are often occurring.
Do you want to talk about a project where that's happening now?
Sure, yeah. We've actually just started one on travel and expenses. So looking at the converting workflows from one system to another. I've been working with our process improvement specialists from my team, as well as one of the people from our training group that's been assigned as change manager. So we've been working together. We've been using the work from our process improvement specialists. They've been gathering the current state, and then we're utilizing that to examine systematically the individuals that are going to be impacted across campus. And that collaboration is really building a thorough list of questions on the impact of that technical change. That we're kind of looking at it through those two lenses of process improvement and change management, so that those can become inputs to our training and communication team so they can design their plans for this technical change. So,
Yeah, that's a project that will resonate with a lot of people at the conference, I think, with travel expenses and workflows and impact on stakeholders. And I really like how your analysis of your projects informs changes to the training that you provide. It's a benefit of having it all in-house. So when you're doing these things, how important to you is integration at different levels of the organization?
well, it's really important, and I think for two reasons. The first thing is that thorough problem investigation. And the second is agreement on how to move forward with a solution. Those two things require leadership, management, and frontline employees to be involved and integrated in problem solving at various levels. Without that holistic integration and collaboration, problems often either go unresolved or solutions that are developed have really rough launches, and the organization doesn't fully adopt that change.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah, I absolutely agree with the problem investigation being crucial. You know, so often we see people who want to jump to solutions rather than taking the time to properly define and investigate things fully. And I know from conversations we've had in the past, you know, we've both heard that don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. You know, in other words, don't ask me to understand it all. I know probably like me, you never promised to bring the solution. You know, you bring the tools and you bring a mindset and a set of activities through which the people who are living with the problem or working in the process can arrive at the best solution for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week, I actually had a student from one of our training classes send me an urgent chat for help. And I called them. They had gone to a introductory meeting to start a problem definition conversation. They scheduled it with someone who had voiced a lot of concern and frustration with the process. And when I called them, the first words out of their mouth was, "I'm not sure what just happened. Help. You told us about these issues and how people can sometimes like take over meetings, and that just happened, I think, but I'm not sure." And so we chatted about it, and they asked, you know, what do they do? And I kind of referred back to something that you mentioned in your book pretty early on, which is where you describe that there's kind of these three camps of people. When they bring you a problem, they fall into one of those three buckets of they either kind of sense there's a problem, but they're not sure what it is, and they're kind of just asking for help, or they know something's wrong and they're kind of reluctant to change, but they might be talking about it. And then there's that third bucket of they know there's a problem and they know exactly how to fix it, and they want you to do it for them.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a category 3, a bit like a hurricane, isn't it? A category 3 client. So well, what did you say to them? What did you say to the student?
Well, we had a nice coaching conversation, and we referred back to these categories. And then we talked about some mitigation strategies, how when you have those people, you have to reset that boundary, that you're just in exploration and you're excited about that idea, and you're going to parking lot that for later for future discussions. And if they've got a lot of energy, the third thing was to kind of give them a task to do and refocus their energy so that they're still contributing to the effort, but pausing for the moment on solutions.
Yeah, no, that's a great learning opportunity for that student, having their problem and being able to go to you for advice on it. And I think that's a really good pro tip for everyone too, isn't it? When the client clearly wants to be doing something, give them a task that you direct for them to focus on. So you're still directing their energy and they're not just out there. Yeah, no, I think, well, as you know, collaboration is very important to me. Like not just in the structured problem solving that I described in the book, but really in the way that we interact generally. And just being in different settings. I know this is a virtual conference, but certainly when you get to go to face-to-face ones, talking to people, being in a different space, often generates lots of new ideas and enthusiasm. And again, thinking back to the visit, that I had with UT Arlington, it really helped with the thinking actually in the book that I ended up writing. And Karen Kusler, who you're presenting with, ended up co-authoring a section on it. About automation making problems visible. That came directly out of a conversation that we had, while I was there, sharing war stories about systems implementations and automated workflows, giving greater visibility to the business through, workflow data and date stamps, but at the same time giving much less visibility to the user and less discretion to the end user who now has this one scripted way of doing things. And I don't know whether I should attempt a Karen impression, but she said something like, well, that's a presentation right there. And so we did it, we worked on it. We presented it in LAT 2020 and it ended up in the book. So it's in print, which I thought was really nice. I've really enjoyed keeping in touch with the both of you over time, finding out what you're doing. And I guess that reflection and linking together of things where you use what's happening to inform changes to your training is really evident in all of those discussions.
Yeah, and that was a really good American accent, Chris. But yeah, no, it's really been wonderful to keep in touch with one another and learn through our conversations. I really appreciate the feedback and insight you provide when we chat. I do remember when we first met that you were working on this book, and seeing it develop and come to life has just been really interesting. When I first read it, I was really excited. Karen and I actually talked about how we both liked it so much. It was really clear and succinct, and it really broke down the complex topic of process improvement into a simple, easy to digest chunks, really. So we decided to start testing it out within our existing curriculum, and we're finding some good success with it. That phrase you use in the book, we kind of latched onto it. Do what you can from where you are. That really resonated with me, my teammates, and it just kind of stuck. It's kind of become our catchphrase. But it's empowering, that acknowledgement that we all have a limited sphere of influence, but we still have the capability to make improvements regardless of our role. And I just think that's really important.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean that's sort of what I intended with it. I had a particular audience in mind, which was actually people working in offices, kind of in any non-manufacturing setting, where there's no improvement program in place. The work is electronic, the problems are difficult to pin down, there might not be a structured approach. And so people are thinking, what can I do? And I'm sure we've all heard many times, there's research about the number of improvement programs that fail. They achieve less than they intended. So I figured there must be this huge audience out there of really frustrated people all wanting to know, well, what can I do where I am? I tried to write it in a way that people would read it and pick it up and say, well, yeah, actually, I think I can do something. I feel like I could actually start to make a change, for the people around me. So it's actually been a real surprise to me that it's turned out to be popular amongst business improvement practitioners. I mean, you're not really the target audience, but I think it's just great seeing what people do with it. I guess the people, you know, the lean practitioners are the ones who are the front line of that small percentage, or trying to get into that small percentage of we have a successful program. And so if they're able to use the book to help shift the culture along, that's great. It's really been fascinating to me, and I actually just I've been delighted actually to see how you've been able to use it at scale in a way that I didn't imagine.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I mean, Chris, if you show this group a book, they're going to read it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many
Mm.
books I've seen today, but I went instantly and started grabbing them. I was like, oh, I'm going to check that one out.
I've noted down the voltage effect from Bill's talk. I definitely want to read
Yeah,
that one. Yeah.
yeah, I did.
Mm.
I wrote that one down as
Mm.
well. But yeah, no, I think that's a really good point that people are kind of using it in a different way. I know the book has helped support our efforts and
Mm.
is helping where, you know, it helps people where they are in their learning journey. It's helped me be a better teacher of process improvement, certainly. As I started integrating the book into the course and kind of restructured the curriculum, it really kind of became a reference that supported the course and kind of helped me create better explanations for students of some concepts. One that I put in from your book was the problem solving model. And I really like teaching this one. You highlight this kind of, I think, in the first chapter. Well, I introduce it alongside the scientific model as a reference point. This is something most people are familiar with. And it kind of gives them that frame of reference to start with problem solving. It's something they know, they just haven't seen it and the steps applied in this new setting before.
So we'll just apologise about the view. When I tried to put it onto what is it, presenter mode, because I'm on two screens, it just kind of completely consumed the screen. So I hope this will be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess this diagram is the heart of it. I started with it, spent a lot of time thinking about it, and to me, it's you know, it's the intentional practice of behaviour in a structured problem solving setting that really brings people along. Yeah, and I also wanted to, I guess, encourage people and say, well, you've seen something like this before. If you've done a recruitment and selection process, or you've done a major procurement, or if you've investigated an occ health and safety incident, you know, you will have used some variation on a problem solving sequence. You'll have transferable knowledge to bring to it. So no, that's interesting that you've kind of picked up on that in your material.
Mhm. Yeah, the other item we use a lot, and you have it kind of paired with that, is that table of tools. And we just kind of call this the toolbox. Um, our program kind of teaches tools for small problems in our first course. And then in our second course, we start adding additional tools on. And this becomes that reference guide of sorts where students have this toolkit and we kind of talk about how you need to assess the situation and the problem you're examining, and then kind of reach into that toolbox and grab the right tool for the right part of the conversation and the phase that you're in.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, I started with that circular model, and you know, it's got a ring just called tools, and ended up, as you can see, there's sort of 40 or so different concepts. I just tried to lay it out in detail. The point that I keep trying to come back to in the book is that all of these things are actually about collaboration. You can't pick up anything and use it on your own. You're not going to get the best result, and so any tool is really not a prop, but it's a prompt at least for a discussion, and it's getting to the shared understanding of something that really matters. Okay. So I wanted to come back to that description of yourself as kind of half business improvement and half culture change. And just if you want to talk about some of the other things that you're doing to work on culture.
Yeah, so we have a couple of tactics that we've used to kind of begin that shift. So the first one is we work projects across campus over the past 3 years, and then Karen has been on our campus for a couple years longer doing this, but we would just kind of get parachuted or dropped into projects by our CIO, like, hey, here's some process improvement people, you might find them useful. And we would just listen in, and then we would kind of see where people were and see where we could add value. That's built visibility and awareness of process improvement work and how it can assist departments with their changes. And over time, that's building demand for our services. The second one is coaching. So when someone comes to us for help, if it's a VP or a department head, we go through coaching, we make a plan with them for how we can assist. And then we have a conversation around their employees as well, and maybe sending 1 or 2 to training to encourage them to have someone that kind of has a little bit of foundational knowledge. So when we come in and do work with them, they get maximum value out of that. And then of course we have third, we've got the training program itself. So we kind of just have a description of, if you've got a problem and you want to know how to solve it, come, we will teach you how to do that. People on campus find that. We do some basic advertising, they find it, and they come to those classes. The first one is problem solving is systematic. We really focus on that piece. And then the second course, we go through problem solving and we dig into those collaborative conversations and how to get agreement on that work, because it is so important. And then after that, they've got a process improvement community that they can join.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And as I said, I love talking to you and Karen, because I think you're just doing such great things. And I really like that range from informal to formal. It's like I wouldn't, not really scaling up the way Bill was talking about, but certainly transitioning from the drop-ins and the informal through to the formal coaching. So the one-to-one exchange, and then like the training program is actually quite a way down the track. It's not what you open with, and that's the one-to-many exchange. And like that they bring a live issue with them. I did actually suggest, I messaged Linda from Cambridge after her session yesterday and said, you've got to talk to Candice and Karen. So hopefully she'll get in contact with you.
Oh, thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Now I'll see if I can just get the slide to cooperate. I did want to hone in on a couple of tools. So back to the shared screen again. And the second class you were talking about with collaboration, and I really like that phrase, agreement to work. I think that's excellent. I'll focus on a couple of tools that I know that you're using, and I guess I'm personally quite excited about this, because these are, aside from the model, probably the only other thing that I invented in the book are these two. The rest are all borrowed and referenced from other places. So it was really cool to hear that you had picked up on it and you like it. Just on the name, I mean, I think you need a hook to pull people in on things, and so AIR as an acronym, this assessing initial readiness or alignment impact readiness, I think again a kind of a tip for people. If you can find a word that, or an acronym that is a word that has a particular meaning that relates to the tool, it's much easier to engage people along the way.
Yeah, no, we absolutely picked these up. People really like that concept of testing the air, and even we combine that with clearing the fog around a problem. I talked about that student earlier that called in a panic. They were actually utilizing the Air 1 and fog to start that conversation to create their problem statement. So in our introductory course, the first topic we go through is, how do you perceive that problem, and focus on building, a clear description and statement of what's going on. We talk about having conversations to gather multiple perspectives, and then leading those conversations with curiosity. We introduce these tools with that conversation to give some structure on there. So we give them Air 1 and fog. So they test that air around the problem, and then use fog to start filtering what's fact, what's opinion, what's a guess. Can you shift anything that's a guess over more towards those opinions and factual statements?
Yeah, no, I like fog, and it kind of inspired air in that sense that I was looking for a word that, you know, that they would relate. I think they fit quite nicely together. And of course, I'm not the only person. I know there's lots of people in the LHE community who are adapting or creating their own tools. I think that's fantastic, and no doubt people will keep doing it. And so what about Air 2? How are you using that one?
Yeah, so when we introduced that one, it's sort of a second check and asking that question. So after you get a clear picture of the problem, asking, are we actually ready and willing to solve that problem? So for example, in the alignment, we actually talk about measuring your voices. So looking at the lens of the customer, the employee, or the process and the organization, and making sure those voices are aligned. So you don't go down a road that you end up having to abandon because there wasn't alignment there.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It's I actually envisaged something else with it. So I just think it's fantastic that you're able to, you know, effectively change the use of it and make it into something that's more meaningful for where you are. I initially thought it would be a way to prioritize different projects. So if I've got 3 or 4 different options, which has the best alignment, which is the greatest impact, or which is the most ready. So to be able to bring it back into that earlier part of the process is great.
Yeah, no. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Yeah.
I was going to say, no, I like that Air 2 can layer on top of itself there. So you can use it with one problem, or you can start to layer it. And so when we do coaching conversations with sponsors, that's something that, you know, they can start utilizing to prioritize where their work begins.
Yeah, no, and I guess I know the presentation that you and Candice, you and Karen, sorry, not Candice, are doing later on today is again about the way in which you've actually modified and combined different things to create a richer, you know, display. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that one in detail.
Yeah, well, thank you. And thanks for taking the time to do this presentation with me. And the plug for the suggestion.
Yeah. No, I was really excited when you suggested it. I thought this would be a lot of fun to do. And, you know, I mean, I'm a manager. I don't work in a lean team at the moment. I just kind of do the business, and I use bits of lean where I can. But it's actually it's fascinating checking in with Arlington every so often and hearing what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think,
are we at Q&A time yet?
I think we're at the point where we can open it up. I can't read the chat, but I can see lots of messages and hopefully lots of questions from people to come.
Would you like me to read a couple of the questions that have come through? Yeah.
Sure.
So the first question came from Julie. It looks like Karen has answered it. I'll just read the question out and I'll read the response, and if you have anything else to add. So Candice, curious about the courses that you teach. Do traditional university students attend, or is it more workshop focused on university employees? And Karen responded, Julie, the primary audience is staff. Occasionally we will have academic administrators participate. It's not for students. The last class had students from about 15 departments across campus. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No, that's absolutely perfect. Thanks, Karen.
You could describe the courses a little bit more.
Yeah, I think if we have time, we've got some more questions here, though.
Okay.
I see
but
that
Julie,
one.
Reach out to us. We'll be glad to share our curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is, do you use a template to assess readiness? What needs to be done if they're not ready?
So we really utilize that Air 1 and Air 2 prompts because there's a list of questions there, and then the readiness kind of gives you that score across the alignment, and stop me, Chris, if I'm wrong, the impact and the actual readiness level. We don't have like a formal scale there. That's just kind of, you look at those scores and decide whether you have that alignment, and kind of focus on those voices as well. If they're not ready, then they shouldn't start work. They need to go back and have some more conversations on whether or not they actually want to start that work. And then we do that with projects as well. If it seems like there's not alignment, we kind of go back and help redirect that conversation to figure that out.
Great. And there's a comment here. We sometimes run into trouble that the sponsor is ready to solve the problem, but the team at the core of the work is not.
Mm-hmm.
Any comment or anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, I'll pause here and see if Chris has anything.
Oh, that's interesting.
Let me clarify. I guess it feels as though our team often gets called to step in and try to solve a problem by a high-level sponsor, when really the problem is maybe that you have a manager who is not very effective.
Okay.
And because that's hard to solve for some people, they try to do a workaround by saying, well, it's the process. And of course it's the process, because someone hasn't been tending to it very well.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us. It's really hard for us to see it at the outset, because everyone's always on best behavior when we're doing a readiness assessment. And then we commit to the project and we get, hip deep into it. And then we see, okay, here's what's going on. And then it's a real slog to the end of the project. So I don't know how if you have any thoughts on how you would handle a readiness assessment to try to surface that.
So we've run into that, and I'll shout out to Karen here, or anyone that from the community kind of has some thoughts on that as well. But we've gotten better over time at assessing that, because that does happen occasionally. We're pretty diligent and as thorough as possible with our scoping. We go through a lot of documentation before we kind of commit to doing those projects. And then we try and have as many conversations like with the people that are going to be working on the team. So those subject matter experts, the managers, the frontline employees, we engage them as soon as possible.
So our intake for our projects comes through the OIT intake process, and we use the BOSS card, which is a tool highlighted in Chris's book. We introduced it about 3 years ago to the project management team, and they quickly grasped onto it, and now it's used by departments all across campus. It's kind of amazing how quickly it's been latched onto, but it really refines what the project's going to be, and then it has to go through some prioritizations and such. So because of that, we're a little bit protected in which projects we get into. We sometimes self-volunteer for projects that we see a high interest in if we feel like we have the time to do it. One of the issues we've been running into lately is the sponsors not responding to their responsibilities for the project, or the sponsor changing in the midstream of the project, the business owner not being defined, and that causes us lots of problems because we don't have those decision makers there to help guide the whole project. So that's been our biggest obstacle lately, is with the turnover and changes due to COVID transitions. Sponsors will change business owners won't be defined. So, yeah.
So I see one more question in the chat from Julie here about the AIR and the readiness assessment, whether it's more intended to note gaps and trigger conversation as opposed to a scaled score. And that's correct, Julie. When most of the time when we're using it for those conversation pieces. We have, Karen's got something she's been working on, which is actually more of a scaled inventory. When we do a process inventory, that gives us the capability to start doing those scored activities, but not traditionally when we're scoping, we're not really scaling and scoring that project.
We also use pro-site change management methodology with our projects. And so there's some things there we pull in that are measurements. It depends on the project as to which tools we pull in. We find AIR is very easy to engage the population that we need to engage. That's non-threatening. It's this casual conversation, and they get the aha moment through the questions.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Someone's raised their hand.
Yes. You're still on mute.
Sorry about that. Sorry. I just had a quick follow-on question. With that training that you mentioned, do the project sponsors also attend that training?
Sometimes.
And do you think that it makes a difference if they do? Because it just resonates a lot what's going on in the chat there, where sponsors, you know, don't really understand perhaps the approach that the project team's trying to do, and then they change their minds, or they change the scope, you know, later on in the project. And I guess my follow-on question to that too is that after staff have done that training, do you think that the engagement level is better, or and do you have any evidence to show that it does improve engagement with the project?
So that's a two-parter there. I want to make sure I've got this right, which is the sponsorship. Do they come to class and do they learn and engage from this? Sometimes they do come to class. Sometimes they come with their team, which is nice because then they can work and have those conversations then. And then if they don't, we actually do a lot of coaching. So we may take bits and pieces and just kind of see where they are, because some people have a basic understanding of process improvement, or at least what their goal is as a leader. They have some kind of strategy. So we'll do coaching conversations and introduce lean topics and process improvement topics in a timely manner. So we don't send them through a training. It's just more of that collaborative environment. And then for the employees, we've had sustained numbers. We started doing training at the beginning of 2020, March or April of 2020, and we've maintained our enrollment numbers. We get between 15, about 15 on average each time we run this class, and we run it twice a year. So we start with about a group of 15 employees in our introductory class. And then we have about 5 to 7 in our advanced class. And we maintain that through our process of our community collaboration. So we meet once a quarter and kind of keep those students engaged. And then people that do engage, like we've brought 10 people with us to the conference. So we have a group of people that have gone through this training class that are also here at the conference. And so they'll actually go, when we go back, we'll go back to our community and we'll do a shared presentation where we then, share that learning out. And we've got about 80 people in our process improvement community.
Thanks.
So Candice is not saying, though, she also does a lot of the change management training. She's certified to train the change management, and she presents the sponsorship and training for change management, which is where a lot of that code goes in. So she's able to cross-pollinate process improvement efforts
Thanks, Karen.
There's another question in the chat.
I see that. So about the process inventory that I mentioned. So yes, we have some specifics in that. And if you're interested in that, reach out to Karen or I, and we can kind of show you that work that's been done on that. But we do have some particular criteria that gets scored around the process, and is there documentation around it? What's the level of satisfaction with the customer? So some of those items get measured and scored by the project team or the process workers.
This is really sorry.
Sorry, I just said thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I think this is a great question, actually, and not one that I've thought to ask, because when I came up with the tool and the questions, and I mean, the tool is actually an acronym and a series of questions, and so it starts with very general: tell us what's happening, what's the impact of the problem you've got, what, a series of things leading to, well, what have you tried in the past and how did that go? And then getting to, are you prepared to try a process that requires you to be very slow and methodical and so on? But I've not actually checked whether Candice and Karen and the team have changed that over time and adapted that into something, maybe quite different for UTA.
It's evolved into a second step of doing the process inventory of what process are touched by this project. And with the process inventory, we look at whether or not there's a good structure. Is the operations working, and are people satisfied with it? So those are some of our measures. I have to give credit to the American Coffee Chat sessions. Julie and others, Ruth, contributed to our thought process as we developed this process inventory from all kinds of sources, and we put this together. We're in our second year of using it, and so I hope to present on it next year. I think I'll have enough data to share that'll be a useful presentation for you. But I'm happy to share the template with anybody that's interested.
Yeah, no, that's good. So interesting. Again, like the intended audience was individuals kind of lost in the wilderness, and what can I do? And so again, that you're able to link it to a process inventory because you can see how it links together. And never occurred to me that anybody who might pick up the book and try it would even have one. So again, I just think it's fantastic what you're doing. I love hearing about it. Love hearing about how you're able to incorporate things and adjust them.
You underestimate our skills, and you don't realize how lost we really are some days.
What I find, Chris, that your book does is it takes someone who is curious and it changes their mindset to how they can approach their curiosity.
Oh, nice.
But it helps them with putting structure there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, I mean, I have it, like, it's pretty thin and easy read. Well, and I remember going through like my Lean Six Sigma certification, and that book is just massive, and it's really overwhelming. So this is like the perfect, like, bite-sized chunk of that.
Yeah, no, well, that was intentional, simple language, fairly short. I've got lots of, manufacturing-based 300-page books that, you need a master's to read it.
Yeah.
Great. It looks like we're at time. Is there anything else, Candice or Chris, you'd like to ask before I wrap up?
No, just thank everyone for attending. I've really enjoyed this session, and thanks to Candice and Karen in the audience. It's been great.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us eavesdrop on your conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I
Candice and
appreciate you
Chris.
attending.
Thanks to everyone who attended today as well. That brings us to the end of the session, and please join us for other conference sessions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.